right, how you doing?
We're good.
Thanks for coming on. So I'm Mike Parnell. My daughter Ryan's 5.5 now. She was diagnosed just before 3. And I'm doing this kind of fundraiser slash kind of community creating activity or project, I would say, to try to get more people. Come over here. Come here. Now she's looking at me with binoculars on. She wants to come on camera so bad, I'm sure. So I'm doing this event called 29029, which is like this endurance hiking event. And I decided to do it as a fundraiser and kind of awareness raising activity for Cure JM. And then I had the idea of dedicating each hike. There's 17 hikes. There's 17 ascents. You go up the mountain, take the gondola down, go up again, 17 total times to reach 29,000 feet, which is Everest. It's called Everesting, or it's called 29029. So then I had the idea of dedicating each ascent to a different person with JM, and then having these interviews to kind of get their story. And just, we don't hear from a lot of people. I mean, we're in the Philadelphia chapter. So I don't know, maybe there's, that I know or have talked to, maybe 5 families. So it's so rare. I mean, I don't know anybody from New Jersey, maybe one person. So, and I have never even spoken to them. So it'll be cool for me, as well as I think other people, to hear different people's stories from around the country, and then also maybe get each a person from each area of the country involved, and maybe make it a decent sized fundraiser. So thanks for being the first ones on. Come here, Ryan, or close the door.
So
please introduce yourselves. And
yeah, so as you were speaking, my heart just leapt, because I actually was involved in I was the original Family Support Network coordinator for Cure JM.
Awesome.
Back in 2004, 2005. Back actually before it was Cure JM, we were working with the Myositis Association of America. And we decided to kind of go off and do our own thing. I identified the regions, and we were trying to hook parents up with each other. It's funny because I just grabbed Abby's books that I kept from when she was young, and was just very briefly looking through them, and just to hear and to see how far this network and what parents are doing now, it just warms my heart. And it's just so cool. It warms my heart, and thank you. Thanks for, taking interest in our kiddo here, and we're excited for you. We're really happy to help.
Thanks. So tell me a little bit more about that. So you were involved when it was, what was it called initially?
Well, so when Abby was diagnosed, there was no Cure JM, and the internet was, they just still had bulletin boards that you would go and post on the bulletin boards. And there were families that we posted a post, and then other families responded, and that was hosted by the Myositis Association of America. Okay. And they, at that time, were more concentrated on adult myositis, so polymyositis, inclusion body myositis, and the JDM piece, we would, so as parents, we're finding each other, and for me it was a godsend to try and reach out to people, because it's so rare to be able to speak to other people experiencing that. And then we kind of started to find each other, and then we kind of did our thing with Cure JM, and Sherry and Tom Hume and Harriet Bowler and others. So just my passion and my background in community organizing took on some of that family support type stuff, and just seeing what it meant to me to have other parents to talk to about my kid and to support each other was so valuable.
Yeah. What year was that?
2004, 2005.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where are you located?
We're near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
But my support network were moms and dads across the nation because there weren't any others here. We eventually found some families here and were able to do some meetings.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Wow. That's so when back then, did you come across people who were Abby's age now that were in that network of contacts of yours, or were they only young kids? Because the people walking around are very young. It's, you know.
Yeah, most of the kids were young. Most of the children were young. There were some teenagers. We had a conference in Los Angeles. I don't remember what year it was, and they had a few teenagers there. And, you know, but most of the parents were kiddos that were, you know, 2 to 7, you know, and just, we didn't have anybody, and we found each other.
Yeah. Thank God for the internet then.
Oh, yes.
10, 15 years earlier, you would have been old, probably. It's wild.
Yeah, yeah.
So how old were you when you got diagnosed?
So I was just about turning 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started treatments right when I was 3, and then I reached remission when I was in high school, so I was 16. So
Okay.
I kind of don't remember too much when I was first diagnosed and kind of growing up. And, you know, I had a lot of great treatments and a lot of great doctors, and I just kind of, you know, went through life kind of mostly feeling like a normal kid. So, you know, obviously my parents were super supportive with everything. I had great friends, and that all kind of helped me.
What kind of medications were you on? Like, was it a similar, do you know if it's a similar protocol that they do now, or was it totally different back then?
I think it's mostly similar.
I think it's similar. You might be able to tell us more because, you know, when your child gets better, you kind of look away from that, and we've moved on. So yeah, I'm sure things are somewhat different in advanced. At the time she started on prednisone. We added Plaquenil shortly thereafter. Prednisone cured some of it, but she did have some muscle involvement, but her skin involvement was much more severe and difficult. And
Yeah.
so the prednisone, you know, we went through, I mean, there's so many different gamuts, right? There's the medicine side of this, there's the behavioral side of this, there's trying to parent a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, and, you know.
She went to the methotrexate.
Yeah, she went from prednisone, we reduced the prednisone symptoms, you know, we kind of went up and down with that. Then we went on methotrexate. Eventually we added IVIG. And the mixture of the methotrexate and the IVIG was what I believe got her better. On top of that, there were numerous topical creams. You know, we tried all kinds of stuff on that rash. So there was that. But the heavy hitting stuff was the prednisone. We tapered off of that, got done with that, went on the methotrexate, added IVIG.
And Plaquenil was almost.
You got off of that.
Plaquenil was the last med for her to come off of. She was on the Plaquenil the longest, and actually for a year or 2 after, she had come off of even the methotrexate.
Okay. Because it was the heavy skin involvement.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you when you stopped like that? Did you do shots of methotrexate?
No, she did oral.
Okay. Yeah, my daughter, we do shots of it, and it's tough. It's
Sounds
half years now, and
Wow.
Is that because they find that liquid is more effective in its delivery method?
I think we had the option. I don't remember why we chose the shots. It seemed kind of easy, like wrestling or like a straitjacket, but it's not easy at all. But I don't know. I don't remember why we chose that. I believe we chose it, or maybe they just recommended it. Wasn't overly keen on ingesting it when you could do it in a sub
To the bloodstream.
shot. Yeah,
How old is she now?
5.5.
Okay, so you've been
Yeah.
about 2 years.
2.5 years. Yeah. So she's just on the methotrexate shot since. So she was on prednisone from September to July, 2.5 years or 2 years ago. Then she was on IVIG all the way till this past August, I believe.
It's almost 2 years.
Just on methotrexate. She was on 23 straight months of IVIG, once a month, and then she's still on the methotrexate. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, by the end of the summer, she may be able to pull the methotrexate. But she's been doing good. She's never had elevated levels of anything since actually the first month of any medication.
Yeah.
So knocked it completely down to normal. And as they've tapered everything, it's never spiked really.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
It's
Yeah.
confusing. I mean, I was looking back. I kept a diary. That's kind of one of the other things. There was another dad, Ralph Becker. His daughter Julia had a diary that was online, and I would go to that every day. And then I put mine online. And I went back to look at some of my notes just before this meeting, and I was just lost my train of thought. That's really cool. The lab results. So the doctors would comment on how her stuff would come up normal, and yet she still, she couldn't climb the stairs the way she should. She still had angry rash, and so I always thought, gee, was I dreaming that? No, she really was. She really did have involvement. It just makes sense.
I think when we were also, kind of entering treatment and getting into some of the heavier drugs, we were like, okay, well, this is good, right? And that, well, pretty quickly we should be able to come off of some of those and remove those medications. But I know they extended much, much longer than we kind of anticipated for having to be on them. And that was just like a frustration as a parent. You don't want it to be resolved. But, patients had to win out.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing how much time. I frankly, I forgot that it's been 2.5 years. It's just like what we do on, Saturday nights or Friday. We'll shift it up or down if we're going on vacation or something. So we travel with the needles and stuff. But
how long did the infusion take?
The infusions were so we went to Hackensack Medical Center, which is up by New York City, and we're
Hackensack.
that. So we're about without traffic, we're about an hour south. It could take as much as almost 2 hours to get there on mornings with the city traffic and stuff. So we'd get there at like 7:30 in the morning or so. By the time where they got the medication brought into the room, the blood work pulled and all that, like we'd probably get hooked up around 8:30. And when she was on her earlier, like the last maybe 4 or 5 sessions, they were tapering that down too, so a little bit quicker. But it was like up to like 8 hours of IV, hooked up between the initial and then the flush out and all that stuff.
Yeah, it definitely took a long time.
Yeah. So those days were like we'd leave the house at like 5:30 in the morning and get home at like 7 at night.
Give me my bed.
Yeah, it was a long day.
You guys near Hogwarts?
We'd go in her room and wake her up. It'd still be dark out, in certain times of year, and she'd be like petrified, knowing exactly what was going to happen. That I don't miss that.
No,
I don't miss it. So how did are you a nursing student now, or are you graduated and a nurse?
So I'm in PA school, so physician assistant.
Oh, okay.
I'm in my final year of school, so I'm in my clinical year on rotations right now. So I'll be graduating hopefully in August. If the COVID kind of messed up things a little bit, but hopefully I'll be graduating in August, and then I'll start working as a PA, hopefully in Pittsburgh. So.
Is that where you're doing like your rounds or whatever now, or?
Yeah. So we have 9 different rotations throughout this past year. So I had a rotation in general surgery. I did orthopedic surgery, family medicine, women's health, all kinds of different things like that. So, and I've been in Pittsburgh. I did some at Cleveland Clinic. Then I had one in Erie also.
Cleveland Clinic in, is that in Ohio?
Mm-hmm.
Did you meet Dr. Hyman?
No, I don't think so.
Rheumatologist there?
He's no. He's like a functional medicine guy. I kind of follow a lot of his stuff. Have you ever tried like different diets or anything as she was going through, or even now to like just keep the general inflammation down or anything like that? Especially with your medical background now, does that interest you, or what are your thoughts on that?
I honestly haven't done a whole lot of research on that. I've sort of seen that there's been a push for that in a lot of, JM kids. And I personally, I don't think, doing anything like that would hurt. Certainly, I think anything that can help is worth a shot.
Right.
So, and I know growing up that I had a lot of GI issues, and I don't know if we ever tried any.
Well, I at the time, organics weren't a big thing, but we started to, certainly I was making homemade bread. I wasn't buying processed foods and those types of things. So we did, try to be responsible about her nutrition and all of that. She was on, supplements and, to counter the prednisone and the calcium drain and all of that. And certainly we wanted her to get that as naturally as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But we've, I know there was a time where some of our friends and family had suggested that we look at naturopathy and that type of stuff. But the research that I did and the ability to find these other families and talk about things, it became pretty apparent. Yeah, methotrexate's a nasty drug. But, diet alone isn't, this is more than just, that. And so, it's a balance.
Yeah, I would imagine that when they get a little older, adding in addition to, the medications would be helpful. But yeah, clearly it's not something you're gonna, treat with food alone.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And it's hard. The other part that I found is it's hard to even try to implement any of that additional stuff because, they're so young. Like you're not going to not eat goldfish.
Well, right.
Like, as much as I'm assuming it probably isn't the best thing, you're not going to be able to do it. So.
Well, right. And that's the thing is that, my husband and I's thing was we wanted her to have as normal a childhood as possible. And so, right, you don't want to put her in a vacuum so much. So the other piece of this disease, right, is the sun exposure. And, one of the things that we had to be extremely careful with her was her UV ray exposure. And so we already knew that her life was altered because of her inability to be outside like the other kids. And so, not that she couldn't be outside, but that exposure in the sun, so during school, she was not allowed on the playground if the UV index was a certain, and then back in those days, UV sun protective clothing wasn't around.
Yeah.
You were ecstatic when there was one or two companies that finally came into place. So that was difficult because she had to stay inside and during recess. And so, I didn't want her to live a life of restricted. So yeah, you're right. The goldfish here, the ice, all that, because you got to live your life too. So. Yeah.
At what age did you start handling a lot of that stuff on your own, like being diligent with, the sunblock and those types of things, or wearing a hat, or,
Day one.
protecting
Day one.
yourself?
Until she really took ownership.
Oh, so until she took it over?
Yeah. Like at what age did you start, recognizing you got to do this for yourself and not like I'm getting forced?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because when she was younger, that was something that was always in our eyes. She has to manage this. So she's going to get to an age where I don't know that there was one day, but it kind of happened.
Probably, I'd say around middle school, kind of when you're getting a little bit more independent slowly, I started to, decide, okay, should I go outside right now? Like, should I wait until it's later in the afternoon? How often should I reapply sunscreen? Like things like that. Sort of started to try and figure it out on my own. And of course, I ask them questions a lot. But
I think for Abby, one of the things is she was so young. She didn't know any different than to sit and get sunscreen, to sit and
Right.
get, she was speaking with a young man that's just been diagnosed recently, and he's a young adult, late teen. And it's very different because now you have to change a habit. With her, all her life, it was just a habit. So she, maybe a blessing.
That's the benefit of, I guess, starting at 3 years old. You really don't remember anything other than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even at 5, my daughter's starting to say, like, I didn't. Did we put my sunscreen on? Kind of almost reminding us at times.
Yeah.
Even though she also cries when we tell her we have to do it first. But it's
Well,
it's one of
it's
the.
awesome that they get to have some say or have some control over that. If they're initiating it, they get to own a little bit more. And I
Yeah.
definitely saw over time where Abby was kind of continually kind of grasping that ownership. She would go to the nurse's station on her own because she needed to apply sunscreen.
Mhm.
It got to the point where probably in the middle school too, like we'd want to go out for a walk or something like that, and she'd be like, "Nope, I can't." And we're like, "It's only 10 minutes." No, I can't be exposed. So, you hate to have your kid not want to go outside, but on the other hand, she was able to learn to manage that for herself, and
Yeah.
that's
How old
continuing
is that?
today.
How old was that? Do you think?
Probably 10, 11,
Yeah.
where she really had that full ownership, I think.
Yeah, I think the thing that really helped was you just mentioned, Mike. So she would have to go to the nurse at lunchtime to
Yeah.
get sunscreen applied. And that activity, I'm sure nobody accompanied her. She just walked down to the nurse's office, so that's funny, but that routine of school, it caused her to have to take some ownership.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So do you think that like your growing up experience with so much exposure to the medical field, is that why you went into that profession?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a huge part of the reason why. I mean, I credit so much of me reaching remission to my healthcare providers that got me on the right treatments, kept such close track of how I was doing. And, I want to be able to do that for my future patients, no matter what specialty it's in, I just want to, provide that for somebody else because I had it done for me.
Yeah.
It seems like
Have you studied this? Have you chosen like a specialty yet, or is there any that interests you?
So I've kind of gone back and forth a lot, but being on rotations, I've kind of fallen in love with like labor and delivery, which I wasn't really expecting exactly, but I also really enjoyed just general family medicine and orthopedics. So I'm kind of open to a bunch of different things coming up here, but rheumatology's always kind of been in the back of my mind too, but that'd be something I'd maybe do further down the line. But I'm just kind of keeping my options open.
I'm sorry, you were saying?
I'm just kind of keeping my options open, so
Yeah.
We'll see what happens here.
Yeah, that's great. So how about for the parents, did you see like an interest in the medical field early on, or was that something that kind of developed later?
I think as she was starting to get in high school and you start asking that question about what are you thinking about or where do you want to go to school, well, that really kicked in until maybe sophomore year. So she was on the swim team. She's been a swimmer since right after she was diagnosed, and that really kind of helped her strengthen her muscles and what have you. But one of her teammates in high school was pursuing physician assistant. So as they continue to build a relationship and talk, that's where it really started kind of zeroing in there.
Huh.
But she was inquisitive. I mean, I can remember that first blood draw. It was tough. But then the second one, the third one, the IVIGs, I mean, she's right in there looking, and so, there was that inquisitive nature in her, I think. Yeah.
What age did she start that IVIG?
She started IVIG, I think it was about 3 years in.
Okay.
2 or 3 years in, yeah.
Yeah, she's probably 6.
yeah, those things always like made her petrified. But like in the past 6 months or so, she's been showing like a lot of interest in medical stuff. Like she'll be on YouTube, and we'll come in and she'll be watching like a video from the Children's Hospital of Cincinnati, or like
Wow.
all these cartoons now of like explaining pretty intense stuff, like
Wow.
content, you know, like genes. Or I was watching a documentary the other day, and they said something about white blood cells and T cells, and she like perked up and she's like, "Dad, did they say T cells?"
Oh my
Jeez,
goodness,
wow.
that's so cool.
It's kind of funny. Like I was curious if that was something that was like sparked at an early age or not, because it's very
Wow.
lately.
That's really cool. Maybe you have a future doctor in your house.
Maybe, yeah. She's also interested in planets a lot, so I don't know. Maybe
scientist.
it's just an interest.
Plenty of time. Plenty of
Yes.
time.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, what this is interesting to be able to talk to an older subject of JM, because most of the people, I think we have like a couple teenagers maybe that I've made contact with, and the rest are probably below 7, like you said. So, like, what after, growing up like that, what kind of advice could you give some of these other kids that are much younger, or even, the teenagers, about growing up with JM?
I mean, I think I wish that I would have been more vocal about, what I was going through with even friends and like classmates, because I think a lot of them just didn't quite understand what I was going through. So I think just being able to advocate for yourself even when you're young, which is sort of kind of difficult because you're going through all these struggles, but I think that would have helped me, kind of process what I was going through, and also allow others to kind of help me through what I was going through and just kind of support me.
Mm-hmm.
And like definitely growing up, I think now I'm kind of starting to, want to be able to advocate for others. So as kids are growing up and getting to their teen years, like just continuing to advocate for Cure JM, and, doing all we can to find a cure for the disease would be awesome.
Yeah, I think that's why that's my opinion, at least, of why there's this gap between, like when you see the active families, and all of a sudden at a certain age, you don't see anybody in this, maybe 10 to 20, 10 age bracket, is that they're like, I think they're, they don't want to talk about it, and especially if it's behind them maybe and they're in remission. But you're right, it would be very helpful if they were more vocal, because it would be so much helpful for the younger kids to hear people that are better now, or even if they're not completely better now, but they've able to do things like join the swim team, or live active normal lives. So that's one of the hopes that I'm from doing this little project, is that we can tell a lot of those stories, and that people that are in the thick of it can realize that there is like an end. For most people, there's an end to it, regardless of how long it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like her to tell the story rather than me, and maybe she'll say it and you can edit it later. But as a kid with a significant muscle involvement, she didn't have much strength, and when she found swimming, she wasn't quite at the top of the competitiveness, but yet she still was able to qualify for like the higher meets. So she went to the state tournament with the YMCA. She swam collegiately. Not only that, she qualified for the state, that's called PSACs in the section that we're in, but she qualified for that. She swam the mile. So there's incredible feats of strength and stamina that she was able to do, despite having a disease that has a pretty significant impact on the muscular, muscle and function.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to re-say that in your own words for some kids to be inspired by you instead of dad.
No, I mean, I don't know.
She's not going to toot her own horn.
No.
Yeah, but like she's our hero, and I look at all of the and your little girl is your hero, and these kids are heroes because they have endured so much, and some of them in their little lives, and they take it so much better than we adults. They're so resilient, and they just roll with it. This kid just rolled with it, and we decided, Mike and I early on, we're not treating her any differently. We're not going to not discipline her, even though those steroid fits, we didn't know if that was the steroids or a 2-year-old tantrum or 3-year-old tantrum. And so you've got to keep as much normalcy as you can, but also give them, the ability to have a moment. And so, yeah, she didn't want to do swimming. She cried and, the whole night. No, you're going to get down there and you're going to get on the block, and, we look at her and we say, look at her. It's just amazing. She's an amazing kid, as are all JDM kids and parents. It's just, you got to see it.
Yeah. Is that how you picked swimming? Because it was, an indoor sport primarily?
Yeah, I think so. I tried dancing and it didn't go so well. So swimming was a much better option. And it took me a while to kind of get over the initial being scared of something new, but I ended up obviously really enjoying it throughout the years and being able to be with teammates and compete on my own and just see my times getting faster and faster throughout the years. It was really cool to be a part of that for so long.
How old when you started?
Well, she started with lessons at the Y at 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
she started on a team, on the swim team at 6. So she started her little competitive career.
That's cool. So, what about your parents? What advice would you give other parents with JM children, as far as what you've learned, not only about walking your kid through, from onset to recovery and remission, but also like how the lessons you learned about dealing with it as a parent, not just dealing with the child, but dealing with it like with yourself, like emotionally, and the stress of it and all that, on top of just the general stress of being a parent in general.
I think there's a couple top from my perspective. One is you're always your child's number one advocate. And so we had great medical people, but the more you're involved in what's going on with them and not just deferring it to them. Suzanne took incredible ownership in Abby's disease course. And I think she was blessed to have a parent that was that engaged. I think it's very important for parents to do. And there are sacrifices that come with that. But those sacrifices are necessary and should be made. I think the other top one is faith, that in all of it, the community you surround yourself with, you recognize that, it's not just medicine, but, God created the body and created it to be able to be healed and created community for you to be with. And so, your support network and through your faith, I think, you can't neglect those things despite having other things that hold your attention. It really continues to give you kind of the ability to press on and have hope, through the process as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have other.
For me, being the mom, I wanted to fix it. I wanted her to be better. And so my way was to completely involve myself in all steps. I mean, my gosh, I was looking at her diary here before I got on, and I took copious notes. I wrote down everything, but that was my way of dealing with it. So I would say, again, like Mike did, be your kid's best advocate. Mama's gut, Papa's gut goes a long way. It really, really does. And if you don't think something is right, you need to make sure you're heard. And if a doctor isn't listening to you, you need to switch doctors. And that's okay. Second opinions are a good thing. And so that would be my top one. To the parents with younger kids, that was something that was just another piece. Where Abby wasn't able to just say, my legs hurt. She would say things like, my knees are bending, or hold me, and so be in tune with your child, and what parent isn't. So really don't, we tend to poo-poo things because we don't want to make a big deal. Don't do that. Listen to the ebbs and flows of what's going on with your kid and advocate. With the young child, the one thing I noticed was discipline, and we had already mentioned that. Don't stop disciplining them. Don't coddle them that way. Certainly recognize the disease and certainly care for that child and love them like you could never love a kid. But at the same time, don't coddle them so much that you're not disciplining them, because you're not going to make a good adult out of them. And so I was looking at my notes, and I guess I had said something to Abby about germs at one point, when she was the immune suppressed system. And she actually had then gone into school and told her schoolmates that she could give this to everybody, that she was contagious. And of course, in these days of COVID-19. And so I made a note in there that said, be careful what you say to her, because she's so young, she takes everything literally.
Yeah.
And so when you're having conversations in your home, or maybe they are too far above what a 5-year-old should hear. Remember, they're always listening, and just be careful that you're always explaining. So we had to sit her down. We had to say, honey, you don't have germs, you don't, and then would it be helpful if we came in and talked to your class about this? And that's kind of one thing you mentioned. So, I think that education and just being a kid's advocate, keep them out of the sun. And again, I don't know how far the disease has gone over the years with that, but I know as a fact that if Abby, us being so diligent with her sun exposure, is part of what got her to where she is. We had doctors that had told us, oh, put her in the sun, and no. And now today, it's great because she has a parasol. She has, so it's different. We took it to an extreme, but I think it was helpful, especially when she was on those meds that even made her more susceptible. Find other parents like what you're doing. This is fantastic, because we're not alone. And I think that for the majority of our parents, I can say it does get better. We wanted it to get better right away, but it took 11 plus years. And if you would have told me that year one, I would have been so discouraged. But us being on the other side of that now, and now so many years away from it, it was just 11 years. I mean, it just, and I grieved. I can remember grieving. Oh, she's not going to have a normal childhood. She's, it's made her who she is.
Right.
And so the experience and who she is, this wonderful young lady she is today, I mean, we wouldn't have it any other way.
I'd rather
well,
without that.
Yeah, but I look at who she is and how strong she is, and I go, we took our lemons and we made lemonade.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any siblings?
Yeah.
Does.
Come say hi.
So that's the other piece of it is.
Yeah, that was my other question, which reminded me.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
She
Older,
was actually. Go ahead.
Older or younger?
Younger.
Okay.
She was born, and 2 weeks later, Abby was diagnosed. So we were dealing with an infant and then a poor sick kiddo. And
yeah.
She had a lot of babysitters while we were in hospitals. And,
Mm-hmm.
She's the other untold story, but she's amazing. Do you have other kids?
It probably worked to your advantage to have her younger, because during those like early throes of the prednisone and everything, and the behavioral whirlwind that was going on, I'm sure we were that was like the one thing I would regret, I guess, the way we handled. We were so amped up about her weakness, and she was sick, and so we said too much in front of my son, who was, she was 3. He was like, he's 3.5 years older. So he was like,
Oh, wow.
6.5. Yeah, 6.5. And so like 6.5 to 7, we were just on him because we were scared, he would hurt her, or we said way too much about her being sick, in front of him within earshot. And he ended up started having panic attacks just before he was 7, and was like scared about getting hurt, playing sports. For a little while, we got him through, had some time with a therapist and stuff, and about a year or so later kind of worked out of that. But he was like, he would stop doing things that he enjoyed doing because he was scared of getting hurt, and we didn't understand why all of a sudden. And then we got it. Like he doesn't want to end up like her. Like he falls off his bike, or gets hurt playing whatever sport he was doing, he might end up going to the hospital. And if he goes to the hospital, blah blah blah, on down.
Yeah.
At 6 years old, that's a pretty big leap. But you got to, that's one thing that we learned the hard way, is not being so vocal around the kids. They pick up on it, and you don't know how they're processing it.
It's hard. We're all just trying to do our best. And everybody's just, we're trying to adapt. And I can to this day remember the dermatologist who gave us the final diagnosis, and she had an Irish accent. And I can hear her saying dermatomyositis in my mind like it was yesterday, and so we're all, that's how's he doing today?
Good, really good. Yeah, he pretty much is out of all that. And we've been much more cognizant since then. I mean, it's 2 years ago now. That added to it.
Yeah, for sure.
I had another question that I thought of when you were talking. What's it? I'm drawing a blank myself now.
It'll come.
It happens.
Sibling, no.
Do you need to get connected with some other families for the project?
Yeah, I've got a list through the different shares that the CureJM Instagram and Facebook have done, where I've reached out to those people, and I've got a list of maybe 12 or 13 so far.
Okay.
And then they're actually working on trying to identify which chapters I've got representatives of, and trying to make blanks for me. So I've reached out to a few more people that they've pointed out. Have you been when's the last time you were active with any of the, the local chapter or anything nationally? Or
a long time. Abby's.
Yeah, I mean, I've recently, I'm on a team for the CureJM walk here in a week or two now. But I haven't really been too much involved throughout college or anything. So it's been a while since we've been really doing a lot.
But Suzanne still has some relationships with some parents, from.
Yeah, some. So what's really cool is when we talk about making it our own. So I was so involved with CureJM for a couple of years there, and now it's I hear her in her room and she's talking, and I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, well, I'm doing this with CureJM, and I'm like, that is so cool, because she's made it. Now it's her own, it's just neat.
Yeah, that's great that you're doing that.
I wonder if Maddie or.
Well, they probably are in touch with some of those, I would think.
I remembered my question now. So going into the medical field, especially in these times, are you concerned with, how are you processing the exposure to, the coronavirus? And is this particularly scary? Because, my concern is it'll, if she got it, all right, so she's immune compromised because she's on immune suppressant drugs. But maybe the fact that she's a kid could counteract that, because kids aren't getting it very strongly in most cases. But even, regardless of either way that could go, could the introduction of a virus of any magnitude like that trigger a flare. So how are you dealing with that, being so close to graduating and being exposed to hospitals and going into it as a field?
I mean, coronavirus is obviously so new. We don't know a whole lot about it, but I know since I've been, obviously, I'm not immunocompromised anymore, and I haven't been for a while. Like I just recently, like when I was growing up, I couldn't get the MMR vaccine because it was a live vaccine. And I recently had to get that in order to do my rotations at PA school, and I haven't had any issues with it. So, my hope personally is that I'm healthy enough now that if I were to get the coronavirus, I would be able to recover from it. And, with the research that I've seen, I don't really have any other risk factors for, having the really bad outcomes if I were to get it. So for me personally, I'm not, you never know, but I'm hoping that, the cards aren't stacked against me and I'd be able to fight it off. But I also know, obviously, I haven't seen too much of what CureJM has put out about coronavirus in kids. I know they have had some things come out, but I'm sure their guidelines they've done a ton of research on what's best right now. And, obviously if you have an immunocompromised kid, that's a little bit scarier. But, if they're getting IVIGs, does that sort of balance out, them having some, yeah. And also if, Plaquenil is a potential treatment, if your kid's on Plaquenil, does that affect things too? So there's kind of a lot of questions about what the outcome of this could be for JM kids, but
yeah,
hope for the best.
As her mom, it was in the back of my head when she started this path. I was like, but again, you have to live your life. And when she said she had to get the MMR vaccine, back in my head, I'm like, because that was ingrained in us, no MMR vaccine. And so I remember
because she was active her whole youth, so she couldn't get it.
Well, they told us at the time it was a live vaccine and it would put her at risk for flare. And so, and again, it probably developed since then.
Until she's off of, I think it was until she's off of immune suppressing drugs for a year or two. I think.
Okay. Yeah.
But so I mean, we're still on it, so she's not.
Yeah.
Soon.
But like in the back of my head, even hearing that description, right? So definitely maybe she got to get it sooner, but in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, because, we don't know what causes JDM, and we don't know, in the back of my mind, I've always been like, she had gotten her varicella vaccine at the pediatrician before she was sick. And it wasn't but a week or so after that, she had an unexplained fever. And then it was like a week or so after that she developed the symptoms. And, there's nothing proved that was what caused it. But in the back of my head, I'm like, was it that vaccine? Was it? And so then when the MMR came along in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, I don't know. But she's fine.
I've been fine. So
that's good to hear. Yeah, it's got to be a challenge to process that. But on the flip side, all the medications that I've heard that are promising for this virus are medications that are in our JM world anyways.
Yep.
Inhibitors and all those things. So it's almost like, I don't know, I guess it's comforting in a way that they'd be on their normal course of medications practically anyways if they did get it. But yeah, we've been extra vigilant with the quarantines and everything because, we just can't risk it. It's not worth it. Just like sunscreen, right? If they're out for 5 minutes, I put it on. If they're outside for 1 minute, I put it on.
Good job, Dad.
How foolish would we be to save one hand washing of sunscreen off us to,
Right.
as it is, in hindsight, it's so simple. Like, such a simple protocol to keep them from flaring. So it could be much worse. So, kind of the closing question that I had in my head to ask a lot of the parents. I've noticed some, like, I don't know if it was from the JM and what she's, growing up through or what, but my daughter has like this incredible gift of like empathy, and like, if someone's not feeling well, if they're hurt, or you know, she's always trying to check on everybody, and maybe that's why she's getting interested in, you know, being a nurse and stuff. But from your experience, both of you, what would you say Abby's JM superpower is?
Let me think on that one.
So, you know, that compassion that you mentioned. So, you know, one of her very best friends growing up from elementary school, and even till now, post, you know, the end of college, has cerebral palsy. And I kind of wonder, you know, would they have connected or related so well if they didn't have the opportunity to kind of live the school life together in certain ways, because they are both limited. But she is extremely sensitive to people and what they're experiencing. Yeah, she's sweet.
So for me, she's strong, and don't mean physically, and she may not believe it, but she has a strength within her, and I believe it was God-given, to withstand anything. She has a very strong faith, and she has a very strong, not morals, what do I want to say, convictions. And so she doesn't have much time for drama. And she just, because I think she knows what's important and what's not important. And, you know, I always said that's going to serve her well. And we're getting to that point now where I'm starting to see that come to fruition, and her making her own. And so, you know, while yeah, you think she wasn't quite the normal kid socially with the kids out on the playground and all of that, but she does have that ability to really look and perceive things, and kind of not sweat the small stuff. And you know, I think it's going to serve her well. And I just watch her now with how she is in the medical field, and how she cares. And I you know, it's just, she has a maturity almost beyond her years. And yeah, I just marvel at her. I'm in awe of her.
She's really smart too.
She's smart.
A lot of things.
Thank you guys so much for participating. And I'd just like to acknowledge you for going into the medical field, because you've definitely, you know, all that experience that you've had over the years, and the compassion that you'll have for your patients will go a long way. And, you know, probably more so than a lot of doctors and nurses out there that haven't, you know, necessarily been a patient all that much in their life. You're going to have to connect on that level a lot greater, I would imagine. So thank you so much for participating. Please keep in touch, and continue to share stuff on Facebook, because and we'll be sharing this video also. But I think it'll help a lot for even us, you know, definitely for the kids, and hopefully we'll get more of the, you know, young adults involved with the foundation and following along with older JMers like yourself. But for us parents to see someone, you know, go through the whole childhood and adolescent and teen years, and be active and strong and smart, and you know, it gives you a lot of hope. So, and you guys stay safe, and good luck with graduation this year.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
so much.
Good luck on your, what's it called? I forget the numbers, but your experience and your trip. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Take care, guys. Be well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.